So I really often feel like nothing is worth doing, and that's a really tricky place to be. Today I want to talk about this idea I've been thinking about, which is the cyclic nature of our mental health, particularly if we're in recovery, particularly if we are creative people. And this is totally unscripted, so I'm just going to talk for several minutes. Hopefully some of it makes sense, because I'm trying to wrestle through these ideas, and I really want to wrestle through them in real time, with you, authentically, as though we're sat in a cafe having a deep conversation about something. I don't like to overly script my videos. So yeah, it came up in a video I did a few days ago, this idea of the cycle of mental health and how I often feel like nothing is worth doing, and that leaves me in this really dark place for a while. But then gradually, through that pain, combined with action, I reached this place of power again, slowly. And then the cycle comes to a conclusion by me falling out of that power again, eventually. So it's like kind of being in the power and then slowly falling out of the power, being in, this deep, dark place where nothing is worth doing. And then through action, slowly, and pain, coming back into being in the power. And for a long time, I've been really trying to figure out a way how I can stay in the power all the time. And I think slowly I'm coming to terms with the fact that I can't, and it's not the case, and it was never supposed to be like that. It's not easy, but I think the closer we come to accepting that idea that we are living in this constant cycle of being in the power and then being out of the power, the less pain we're inevitably going to be in. Because if we can accept just the place that we're at for what it is, and then through putting in action to get ourselves out of that place of pain or whatever it might be, then I think overall it's going to be better for us as creative people in recovery than really fighting it, And that's one thing I've done over the years, is fight against these feelings, And that inevitably makes it worse. Anytime I try and fight against these feelings of pain, the way that I do it as someone in recovery is I want to check out of reality. So it used to be drink, it used to be drugs that I would do that. These days it's my phone, it's short form video content, it's the internet generally, it's social media, it can be YouTube as well, that's the truth. And I would much rather be using my phone too much than using alcohol and drugs all the time. But I don't think that, I think in theory, it's the same kind of negative pattern repeating itself, only in a slightly less harmful way, I would say. And so I want to try and break out of that. I want to try and come to this place where I can accept that the cycle is what it is, and just got to kind of get on with things kindly. And also, the nature of a cycle is that, think about the seasons, for example, or think about a 24-hour day, for example. Everything in nature is cyclic, and everything in nature is perfectly imperfect. It's perfectly balanced between this order and this chaos. At the minute here in England, we're coming out of summer and we're going into autumn. The leaves are falling off the trees. They're all getting yellow on the floor. There's a great beauty in that death, I find. And soon we'll be going into winter, which is, can be quite a depressing time. It's dark for most of the day. It rains a lot. It's cold and wet and miserable, very cloudy and grey. And then eventually, come March, April, we'll be moving into spring, and then we'll be back around into summer again. And that's just one example of a perfectly imperfect cycle, a cycle that contains everything. It contains, all the good energy, all the energy that we can possibly perceive as negative, even though it all has a function. And it contains everything in between. It contains beauty in death. It contains rebirth. It contains renewal. It contains, things growing like grass, for example, in the springtime, in all kinds of crazy ways. But Nobody ever complains that the grass is not growing straight enough because it still looks beautiful, even in its imperfection. And so the reason I'm talking about those cycles of nature is because, well, obviously we are part of nature as well. And so what we can conclude about this idea of the cyclic nature of our mental health, and the way that we fall down into deep depression and come back out of it the other end feeling better for whatever reason, through putting a bit of work in, through patience, through time as well. What we can conclude is that these feelings are normal. They're not feelings that need to be avoided through the use of drink or the use of drugs or even the use of my phone all the time to check out of reality. They can be sat in, they can be dealt with, they can be, perhaps dealt with is not the right word, they can be sat in, they can be experienced fully, they can be embodied. We're allowed to feel sad, we're allowed to feel depressed, we're allowed to feel shame and frustration and anger. We're also allowed to feel joy, ecstasy, bliss, happiness, contentedness, worry, anxiety, excitement, love, pain. All these things we're allowed to feel. And I suppose that's pretty much what I've got to say about the cyclic nature of things. This video is as much for me to remind myself that I don't need to beat myself up for feeling bad some days, and I don't need to rush out of those feelings. It's perfectly okay to sit in them, to experience them, to let time do its work, and to let time bring me out of that season of my life and into a new one. And it's also for you, so hopefully that message has landed in some way or another. Like I said, I've written like 2 lines on a piece of paper about what I wanted to say about cycles, and I've just kind of riffed the rest of it, so hopefully it's made sense. One final thing I want to touch on is when I'm in pain, one of the best ways I get out of pain is by giving other people what I want to receive. And so if I wanted to receive more pain, I would give pain to other people, but I don't want to receive more pain. I want to receive more love. I want to receive more creativity. I want to receive more ideas and, I want to achieve a deeper sense of spirituality. And so the way that I achieve those things when I'm in pain is by giving those things out to other people, and those things will come back in return. That's been my experience of the situation, and I know that when I'm actually practicing that principle of being of service, of helping others, of putting out what I want to receive, it does eventually come back to me. So I'd just like to end it there. If it's this video spoke to you, let me know, leave me a comment. If it's not spoke to you and you hate it, leave me a comment, let me know. Always open to some constructive criticism. Please feel free to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'll link my community in the description below. It's called Creating Sobriety, and in the community I'm tackling all these kinds of ideas. And I hope to see some of you there. Thanks.